with sanctions, are there the same leakages where Tehran and, frankly, all of commercial Iran can move over to other European entities and avoid sanctions?
So that used to be the case. And under the Iran deal, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the U.S. eliminated what were called secondary sanctions. And secondary sanctions are really the stick and really the mystery of what we can see the Trump administration do. They force foreign companies to choose between doing business with the U.S. or doing business with Iran, but not both. They came into effect in the Obama administration. They've only been used twice, really. But you can freeze assets of companies in the U.S. found to be doing this. You can ban them from dealing with the U.S. outright. So you can really do some damage to an economy if you find collaborators with Iran that are continuing to support them. And that could be the major sanctions that the administration's talking about today.
But Dan, this is an economy that's pretty much, crippled already. If you look at the extent of the sanctions so far, we're looking at 1,000 Iranian entities, including banks, individuals, vessels tied to the country's shipping and energy sectors. And then in May, we had another wave of sanctions hurting a lot of the commodities, aluminium and copper.
So I think that's right. We're running out of significant things to sanction at this point. Now, that being said, it'll be important to separate whatever announcement is made, if it's even made today, from reality, whether these are symbolic designations of additional actions that are coming out against additional figures in the Iranian government. There's not much left that hasn't been sanctioned. So what they're likely going to be focusing on is other third parties not in Iran found to be continuing to support Iran. And one such possibility is Instex, the EU-led mechanism to support trade between Iran and Europe. Now, this was supposed to be focusing on permissible humanitarian aid, permissible even in the eyes of the U.S. That being said, there's been a number of threats against it by the U.S. government over the last few weeks in terms of concerns around the illegality of that mechanism.
But Dan, do sanctions work? If the point is to actually get Iran to the table again to talk, if it's to de-incentivize them from nuclear threats, does crippling an economy, is it the right way?
I mean, picking fights to try and solve a trade dispute or an ongoing diplomatic dispute likely isn't the best mechanism. I mean, if you play back what's happened, the U.S. pulled out of a deal that Iran has generally been viewed to have been complying with. Iran has downed a U.S. drone. The U.S. then threatens to retaliate, pulls back, and then threatens more sanctions. But if you look at historically how we've abided by deals, we've become an extremely unreliable trading partner. So do sanctions work? I would argue no, and especially in the way they're used today, it's hard to see how they're working to bring people to the table.
Well, this is critical. I mean, Francine brought up Daimler earlier. If Mercedes-Benz in Germany has these secondary sanctions, are they not going to be able to sell Mercedes in America because they're selling them in Tehran to the 12 people that can buy them?
Under the authority that the U.S. has granted itself, that is a possibility, that company, any company found to be trading with Iran, if the U.S. decides to point them out as one of those entities, could be banned from the U.S. and have assets frozen in the U.S. There's flexibility in how the U.S. can deploy that mechanism.